araw! Kumusta kayong lahat? Maraming salamat sa Diyos sa isa na namang napakabuting araw at pagkakataon para matuto. Muli, ako si Teacher Royce at hayaan nyo na gabayan kayo at tulungan upang gawing ang math ay maging madali lang. Simulan na natin! Ang pag-uusapan natin ngayong araw ay ang tungkol sa probability of a union of two events. Our objectives: define probability, define the union of two events, and illustrates the probability of a union of two events. By definition, probability is defined as a ratio of how many times an event may occur as compared to the total possible outcomes. Probability of an event P of M is equal to the total number of desired event M divided by the total number of possible outcomes L. Thus, we have the equation P of M is equal to M over L. So take note that the probability of an event P of M is in between 0 and 1. Or the probability of P of M is greater than or equal to 0 but less than or equal to 1. And the sum of the probabilities of all outcomes is equal to 1. An example we have: in flipping a die once, the possible outcomes are 6, namely 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Thus, each outcome has a probability of 1 out of 6. Adding all these probabilities, we have 1 over 6 plus 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 1 over 6 would result to 1. Let's have our first example. In an experiment of tossing a coin, what is the probability that a tail would come out? So we let P of M be the probability of getting a tail. M be the total number of desired event, and L be the total number of possible outcomes. M is equal to 1 since in tossing a coin once, only one tail is the outcome. L is equal to 2 because the total possible outcomes are head and tails. Setting up the equation, we have P of M is equal to M over L. So we substitute the obtained values and we will have P of M is equal to 1 over 2, or in decimal, 0.5. If the answer has to be converted to percentage form, then 0.5 has to be multiplied by 100. Then we will have P of M is equal to 0.5 times 100. So P of M, the probability of getting a tail is 50%. Sana nasundan. Thus, 1/2 or 50% is the probability of getting a tail in an experiment of tossing a coin. We now proceed to example number 2. What is the probability of getting a 5 when rolling a regular die once? For For our solution, we let P of x be the probability of getting a 5 when rolling a die once, x be the total number of desired event, and z be the total number of possible outcomes. Then, x is equal to 1. Since in a regular die, only one face has a 5 dots mark. And z is equal to 6 since in a regular die has 6 faces. Setting up the equation, we have P of x is equal to x over z. By substitution, P of x is equal to 1 over 6. Thus, 1 over 6 or 16.67% is the probability of getting 5 when rolling a regular die once. Dumako naman tayo sa union of two events. Given two events M and N, the union of these two events is the elements which are found in M, in N, or in both M and N. In symbol, M union N is the set X such that X is an element of M, or X is an element of N. So take note, the word or here means one or the other, or both. For our example, if given that events M has the elements 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and N is equal to the set with elements 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, then M union N is equal to the set with elements 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 10. For the illustration, so we have the set M, the first circle, with elements 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and set N, the second circle, with elements 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. So notice the orange area here. These are the elements common to both events. 2, 4, 6 are common to events M and N. Again, take note that in listing the elements in the union of two events, the common elements have to be listed once only. Tuloy-tuloy na tayo sa probability of a union of two events. Given two events M and N, the probability of a union of these two events, which can be written as P of M union N, is equal to the sum of the probability of event M and the probability of event N minus the probability of M intersection N, the elements occurring to both events. In this case, it is assumed that M and N are not mutually exclusive events. In other words, M intersection N is not an empty set. So in symbol, P of M union N is equal to P of M plus P of N minus P of M intersection N. So take note, if these two events, M and N, are mutually exclusive, then P of M union N is equal to P of M plus P of N. Tingnan natin ang example. Tossing a coin once, M is an event of getting head, and N is an event of getting tail. Here, there is no chance that the outcome will be of both event, making M intersection N empty. Hindi pwedeng kapag nag-flip tayo ng coin, ay parehong head and tails ang lumabas at the same time. And so, P of M union N is equal to P of M plus P of N. Hence, P of M is equal to 1 over 2. Since one head out of two possible outcomes. And P of N is equal to 1 over 2. Since one tail out of two possible outcomes. Then we will have P of M union N is equal to 1/2 plus 1/2. Making P of M union N equals 1. Again, event M and event M are mutually exclusive events. Ito ang second example. In the previous example, we have event M equals the set 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and N is equal to the set 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Now we are asked to find the probability of M union N. Event M has 6 elements. Event N has 5 elements. And the total number of elements is 11. Look at this figure. Event M is represented by the first circle and event N is represented by the second circle. Notice that this area contains elements common to both events. 2, 4, 6 are common to both events M and N. So, the probability of M is equal to 6 over 11. The probability of N is 5 over 11. At this point, we have to take note that M intersection N is not an empty set, meaning there are elements common to both events. As illustrated, 2, 4, 6 are common to both events M and N. Now, since M intersection N has 3 elements, so the probability of M intersection N is equal to 3 over 11. We substitute the values obtained in the equation. So, P of M union N is equal to P of M plus P of N minus the P of M intersection N. Then we will have P of M union N is equal to 6 over 11 plus 5 over 11 minus 3 over 11. That will give us P of M union N is equal to 8 over 11. Therefore, the probability of a union of events M and N is 8 over 11. In symbol, P of M union N is equal to 8 over 11. Sana nasundan ninyo at natutunan. Another example. In an experiment of drawing a card from a regular deck of cards, what is the probability of drawing a heart or a face card? So we let M be an event with heart cards and N be an event with face cards. So we take note that the total number of cards in a regular deck of cards is 52. So lahat ng cards ay 52. M is equal to 13 cards since there are 13 heart cards out of 52. And so, P of M is equal to 13 over 52. Or simply 1/4. N equals 12 cards since there are 12 face cards out of 52. And so, P of N is equal to 12 over 52 or 3 over 13. Note that in this case, M intersection N is not empty, meaning the two events are not mutually exclusive. The question is why? So to answer that, look at this illustration. There are face cards that are also hearts card, namely Jack of Hearts, Queen of Hearts, and King of Hearts. So those are the elements common to both events. Heart cards and face cards. Continue, M intersection N is equal to 3 since there are 3 face cards that are also hearts card, making the probability of M intersection N or P of M intersection N equals 3 over 52. We now substitute the values obtained in the equation. Then, we will have P of M union N is equal to 1 over 4 plus 3 over 13 minus 3 over 52. Giving us P of M union N equals 11 over 26. Therefore, the probability of M union N is equal to 11 over 26. Class, ito ang mga kailangan nyong tandaan. The probability of an event, example P of M, is equal to the total number of desired event M divided by the total number of possible outcomes L. In symbol, P of M is equal to M over L. The probability of an event P of M is in between 0 and 1. Tandaan nyo ha, hindi pwedeng less than 0 ang resulta at hindi rin naman pwedeng more than 1 ang resulta. The sum of the probabilities of all outcomes is equal to 1, or in percentage, 100%. Next, to get the probability of the union of two events, for example, events A and B. The probability of A union B is equal to the probability of A plus the probability of B minus the probability of A intersection B, meaning the two events are not mutually exclusive. There are elements that are both common to the two events. And lastly, to get the probability of A union B, if the two events are mutually exclusive, we will just get the sum of the probability of the two events. In symbol, P of A union B equals P of A, or the probability of A, plus P of B, or the probability of B. Sana ay nagabayan ko kayo upang mas maunawaan ninyo ang inyong lesson. Maraming salamat sa inyong panonood at pakikinig. Nawa ay natulungan ko kayo upang mas maunawaan ninyo ang inyong lesson sa mathematics. Gusto ko ring magpasalamat sa patuloy ninyong pagsuporta sa ating Facebook page at ang ating YouTube channel. Kung nagustuhan nyo at natulungan kayo ng aming mga videos, inaanyayahan ko kayo na mag-like at mag-subscribe sa ating YouTube channel. At huwag rin kalimutan na pindutin ang notification bell para lagi kayong updated sa mga videos na na-upload natin. Maraming salamat at paalam!